Have you ever had that strange feeling? Like you're just going through the motions, living a life that doesn't quite feel like your own? Maybe it hits you in the middle of your daily routine, or late at night when everything's quiet. That subtle, unsettling thought creeps in. Is this really who I am? What if I told you that many of the choices you've made, the beliefs you carry, and even the things you want might not have come from you at all? What if they were handed to you by your upbringing, your culture, or the quiet but powerful influence of the people around you? So here's the big question. How much of your identity is truly yours, and how much of it is just a mask? Something carefully shaped to meet expectations, gain approval, and fit in? It's easy to get caught up in playing roles. We all do it. Roles written by our parents, teachers, society, and even by the fears and insecurities that whisper in the back of our minds. But today, we're going to dig into something deeper. We're going to explore one of Carl Jung's most powerful ideas. The belief that life doesn't really begin until you find yourself. Now, that sounds simple, right? Find yourself. But what does it really mean? Is it just about self-awareness, getting to know your preferences, values, and quirks? Or is it something deeper, something more transformative? Stick with me, because by the end of this journey, you might see why so many people never actually do find themselves, and how you can begin to break free. The final insight we'll explore is a game-changer. Could shift not only how you see yourself, but how you show up in every part of your life. Carl Gustav Jung wasn't just another psychologist. He was a pioneer. Someone who stepped beyond the traditional models of psychology to explore the vast, hidden world of the unconscious mind. While others focused on helping people adjust to societal norms, Jung believed the real work of psychology, the real journey, was something called individuation. And individuation isn't about becoming who society wants you to be. It's about becoming who you truly are. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people never take that journey. They stay stuck in versions of themselves shaped by what others expect of them. They chase validation through success, social approval, or trying to fit in, believing that's where happiness lies. But underneath all of it, there's often a subtle feeling that something's off. A quiet unrest. A sense that something important is missing. According to Jung, that missing piece is you. Not the mask you built, not the role you're playing, but your real self. The part of you that's been buried under layers of conditioning since the day you were born. And that's where it all starts. Conditioning. From the moment we're born, we're given names, labels, roles. We're taught what's acceptable and what's known. What gets praised and what gets punished. It's so subtle, so constant, that we rarely question it. Instead, we adapt. We blend in. We start to suppress the parts of ourselves that don't seem to fit. Think back to when you were a kid. Were there times you expressed yourself freely, only to be told you were being too sensitive, too loud, too dreamy, too much? Over time, you probably learned to hide those parts of yourself, to put them away where no one could see, and in their place you started to build something else. Jung called it the persona. The persona is the version of ourselves we show the world. The social mask that helps us function, make friends, get through the day. And on the surface, it seems useful. It helps us navigate relationships, careers, expectations. But there's a catch. The more we identify with the persona, the more we start to believe that it is who we are. We forget there's something deeper underneath. And over time, we can lose touch with our true selves. Now, let's talk about the flip side of that mask, what Jung called the shadow. If the persona is what we show the world, the shadow is what we hide from it. It's made up of everything we've rejected in ourselves. Fears, unspoken desires, emotions we were told were too much. Even our hidden talents and strengths that didn't fit the mold. And here's the twist. The shadow doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It doesn't go away just because we ignore it. In fact, it operates beneath the surface, influencing our thoughts, behaviors, and emotional reactions in powerful ways. Ever find yourself having a strong negative reaction to someone and not really knowing why? Or getting unusually triggered by a behavior in someone else? Jung believed that when this happens, we're often seeing a reflection of something we've disowned in ourselves, something buried in our own shadow. But here's where things get really interesting. What if the shadow isn't the enemy? What if those parts of ourselves we've pushed away aren't there to hurt us? but to complete us. Jung's big insight was this: psychological growth doesn't happen by eliminating the shadow. It happens by integrating it. That means turning toward those hidden parts of ourselves, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Because inside the shadow is power, creativity, authenticity, freedom, and that right there is where the real journey begins. Are you willing to go there? To face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding? Because what comes next might shake everything you thought you knew about yourself. But it could also unlock a kind of freedom you've never experienced before. Let's go deeper. Most people walk around thinking they already know who they are. They'll tell you their name, their job, their backstory. But Jung would say that's only the surface. Your true self is so much more complex. It's not just your personality. It's a vast inner landscape, filled with forgotten memories, unexpressed emotions, and potential you haven't even touched yet. And here's the key. Finding yourself isn't about inventing a new identity. It's about rediscovering what's already inside you. Ask yourself, have you ever felt that strange longing for something more? Like there's a deeper, more authentic version of you trying to break through? That's not just your imagination. That's your unconscious mind trying to wake you up. That's the call to individuation. To Jung, individuation meant becoming whole. Integrating all aspects of yourself, the good and the bad, the light and the dark, the parts you love and the parts you'd rather hide. And here's the thing, most people avoid this process because it's hard. It's uncomfortable. It forces us to look at things we'd rather keep buried. Think about it. How often do we avoid silence? How often do we distract ourselves? Scrolling endlessly, working non-stop, binge-watching something, just to avoid being alone with our own thoughts. That's not just a coincidence. That's avoidance. It's a defense mechanism. Because when we finally stop running from ourselves, we start to see what's been hiding underneath all along. And yes, that can be painful. But it's also the beginning of real transformation. Jung believed that our unconscious is always communicating with us. Through dreams, through emotional triggers, through the stories we keep repeating. But we've been trained to ignore those messages. Until we don't. And once we start listening, really listening, we start to see the patterns. We start to notice how our old wounds influence our choices. How our suppressed emotions show up in our relationships. How the things we're most afraid of often hold the exact lessons we need to grow. Let's take just one example. The fear of rejection. A lot of people live their entire lives terrified of being judged. They hide their true feelings. They avoid conflict. They try to be what others want. But Jung would ask, where does that fear come from? Is it really about what others think? Or is it rooted in something deeper? A memory, a wound, an old belief that says, I'm not good enough as I am. And until we face that part of ourselves, until we bring it into the light, it will keep running the show from behind the scenes. But once we do, once we acknowledge it, it begins to lose its power. Just imagine for a second what it would feel like to live without that fear. To speak your truth without second guessing. To make choices not based on what's expected, but on what's real for you. That's what individuation is all about. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming more of who you already are beneath the masks, the conditioning, and the fear. And the journey is just getting started. In the next part, we'll dive into one of Jung's most fascinating ideas. Archetypes. These are ancient, universal patterns buried deep within your psyche, and they might just hold the key to unlocking your greatest potential. Let's pick up right where we left off at the idea that most people live as strangers to themselves. Think about that for a moment. How many people around you, maybe even yourself, are walking through life on autopilot, reacting instead of reflecting, moving from one expectation to the next without ever asking, is this truly me? That longing you sometimes feel, that quiet inner whisper saying, there's more, it's not your imagination. It's not a midlife crisis or a phase. It's your unconscious trying to reach you, nudging you towards something more real. Carl Jung didn't see that whisper as a weakness. He saw it as a call to individuation. Now, that term might sound technical, but at its heart, individuation means becoming whole. It's the process of bringing every part of yourself, your light, your shadow, your fears, your gifts, into conscious awareness. Not to fix or perfect yourself, but to fully accept and integrate who you are. Because real transformation doesn't come from trying to be someone else, it comes from understanding who you've always been underneath the noise. But here's the hard truth, most people never get to that point. Why? Because confronting the full truth of who you were isn't easy. It's messy, uncomfortable, and sometimes even painful. It means revisiting parts of yourself you've buried, old emotions, past wounds, fears you thought you had escaped. It means letting go of the comfort of certainty and stepping into the unknown. Most people avoid that. Instead, they fill their days with distractions, scrolling, working, planning, numbing. Anything to avoid that stillness. But that stillness? That's exactly where the self begins to speak. So how do we begin to listen? Jung believed one of the clearest windows into the unconscious is through our dreams. Think about the last dream you remember. Did it seem strange? Random? Maybe even disturbing? Jung saw dreams as messages from the unconscious, a symbolic language that, when explored, reveals what we're really grappling with beneath the surface. Let's say you dream about being chased. You wake up anxious and shrug it off as stress. But Jung would ask, what are you running from in waking life? A decision? A truth? A version of yourself you're not ready to face? The power of dream work isn't about interpreting every dream literally. It's about using those symbols to ask deeper questions. Because once you begin to decode those messages, you begin to reclaim parts of yourself that have long been ignored. And it's not just dreams. Creative expression, painting, writing, music, these are all ways to give shape to the unconscious. When you create without judgment or agenda, something hidden starts to come to the surface. You begin to recognize patterns, emotions that show up in your phrases that keep repeating in your writing, images that feel oddly familiar. These are clues. Follow them. But if you want to take that next step, if you really want to transform, you have to go further. You have to start watching your thoughts. Not in a judgmental way, but with curiosity. Notice what triggers you. Notice what brings joy, what makes you shrink, what makes you come alive. Those reactions are maps. They lead back to the self. Let's explore a practical example, fear of rejection. It's one of the most common fears people carry, yet so few examine it. We avoid conflict, people please, stay silent, not because we want to, but because we're terrified of being cast out, criticized, or left behind. But where does that fear really come from? Maybe it's a memory from childhood. Maybe you were criticized for speaking up or punished for expressing emotion. Maybe the rejection came subtly through silence, avoidance, or just not being seen. Over time, you internalize it. You start believing that if you just stay quiet, small, agreeable, you'll be safe. But Jung would say that fear isn't just something to cope with. It's a shadow aspect. And within it lies power. Because hidden in that fear of rejection is a longing to be accepted as you are. And hidden in that longing is your truth, your voice, your vulnerability, your courage. When you face it, when you lean in instead of pulling away, you begin to reclaim that part of yourself. And suddenly, it's not fear that controls you anymore. It's choice. This is the work of individuation. But it doesn't end then. Jung went deeper into something even more fascinating, the archetypes. These are ancient patterns that exist within all of us. You can think of them as characters in the story of your psyche. They show up in myths, dreams, and even in everyday behavior. Take the hero archetype. That's the part of you that wants to grow, to take on a challenge, to overcome. It's why stories like The Matrix, Star Wars, or even ancient myths feel so deeply resonant. They mirror your own inner journey. But every hero has a shadow. In every story, there's a villain, a monster, a dragon to slay. In your own life, that villain might be fear, addiction, shame, doubt, anything that holds you back from stepping into your fullest self. And here's where Jung's insight becomes transformational. That shadow isn't just something outside of you, it's within. Have you ever found yourself standing on the edge of change? A new job, a bold decision, a relationship you know you need to leave, but something holds you back. That tug-of-war is the hero and the shadow clashing inside you. And the only way forward is through. But instead of slaying the shadow, Jung invites us to integrate it. That means asking, what is this fear teaching me? What does this resistance reveal about what I truly value? Sometimes what looks like self-doubt is actually a quiet wisdom, a warning to move more deliberately. Other times, it's just the echo of someone else's voice, planted long ago. This reframing doesn't just shift your mindset, it changes your life. Because suddenly, the parts of yourself you thought were flaws become allies. Your doubt becomes discernment. Your anger becomes passion. Your sadness becomes empathy. And your fear becomes a compass. Now, archetypes go beyond just the hero and the shadow. There's also the anima and animus, Jung's terms for the inner feminine and masculine energies we all carry regardless of gender. The anima is intuition, emotion, creativity. The animus is structure, logic, action. When these forces are out of balance, we feel it. A man disconnected from his anima may struggle with vulnerability or emotional intimacy. A woman disconnected from her animus may hesitate to take initiative or assert her boundaries. But when these energies are embraced, not repressed, they create harmony. You become more balanced, more whole. And that, again, brings us back to individuation. Finding yourself isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. It's not about erasing your past or rewriting your personality. It's about recognizing every part of you as valid, as essential. And yet, there's one final piece Jung uncovered. One last insight that ties everything together. In the next part, we're going to explore the biggest illusion of all, the illusion of the self. The idea that you are just one static, unchanging me moving through the world. Jung believed that illusion is the deepest barrier to transformation. What if the self you think you are is just a mask? Let's unravel that together. Let's talk about the greatest illusion, the one that keeps more people stuck than any other. It's the illusion of the fixed self. Most of us go through life with a kind of unconscious script. You picked it up from childhood, your parents, your culture, your early experiences, and without realizing it, you start to think, this is who I am. I'm shy. I'm not creative. I'm the strong one. I'm a people pleaser. I'm broken. I'm not enough. Sound familiar? These identities become masks, what Jung called the persona. And in a way, they serve a purpose. Your persona helps you navigate the world. It lets you play roles, student, friend, partner, professional. It allows you to function in society. But here's the danger. Over time, you start to believe the mask is you. You forget that it's just a layer, a carefully constructed outer self designed to win approval, avoid rejection, and maintain control. But beneath the persona is the real you. And Jung's work, if taken seriously, isn't just a guide for self-reflection. It's a call to shed the mask. A challenge to start performing and start becoming. Now that sounds beautiful, but it's terrifying too. Because when the mask falls away, you're exposed. Raw. Vulnerable. You can no longer rely on old stories, roles, or labels. And for a moment, it feels like falling into nothingness. But that nothingness is the threshold of transformation. It's in that space, between who you were and who you were becoming, that something new is born. Not a better version of you, but a truer one. Let me give you an image. Imagine a snake shedding its skin. That process isn't clean or comfortable. It's slow. The old layer has to be rubbed off, scraped, outgrown. But when the skin falls away, the snake emerges renewed. You are that snake. And every time you choose truth over performance, every time you ask, what's really going on inside me right now? Every time you let go of who you should be to embrace who you are, you shed a layer. That's how the process works. Not overnight. Not in a straight line. But piece by piece. This is where Jung's greatest insight comes full circle. The self, capital S, is not something you find out then. It's not a goal you achieve or an identity you create. The self is something you grow into. And is already inside you. It's been whispering to you all along. In your bad feelings. In your discomfort. In your dreams. In your longing for more. In your quiet moments of truth. That whisper is the self calling you home. But here's the paradox, the more you chase it, the more it hides. You don't reach it by striving. You reach it by surrendering. By listening. By integrating. By allowing. And by having the courage to walk away from the roles that no longer serve you, even if that means stepping into the unknown. So let me ask you a question, one that Jung might have asked if he were sitting across from you. Who are you when no one is watching? Not who you think you should be. Not the person others expect. But the raw, real, unfiltered you. Because that person? That's the beginning. Not the polished version. Not the healed version. Just the honest version. And when you start from honesty, everything changes. You stop needing to prove yourself. You stop living in reaction. You stop clinging to the past. And you begin to respond not from fear, but from wholeness. You start creating, connecting, expressing, relating from a deeper place. This is not the work of a weekend retreat or a self-help book. This is lifelong work. Sacred work. And it's never too late to begin. It doesn't matter if you're 25 or 65. If you've been avoiding your truth for decades or just starting to explore it now, the invitation remains the same. Come home. Not to some perfected self, but to your whole self. To your light. To your shadow. To your fear. To your joy. To your past. To your purpose. This is what Carl Jung meant when he said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Let that sink in. Not achieve who you are. Not fix who you are. But become who you already are beneath the masks, beneath the conditioning, beneath the fear. So now the question becomes, are you willing? Willing to feel? Willing to listen? Willing to go inward even when it's hard? Because if you are, then your journey doesn't end here. It's just beginning. And no matter where you are right now, lost, inspired, stuck, open, you are not alone. Millions of others are on the same path, asking the same questions, peeling back the same layers. You are part of a quiet revolution. A movement not toward perfection, but toward truth. And it all begins the moment you stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "Who am I really?" If this spoke to something deep inside you, it's not by accident. Share this with someone you know is ready to remember who they are. And if you're ready to explore this path even further, we've only just scratched the surface. Because the real question is no longer, who do they want me to be? It's, who was I before the world told me who to be? That's the journey. That's the gift. That's the self. And it's been waiting for you all along.